All right, Gaza War Day 246. I wasn't supposed to be here. This was a night that I was gonna finalize my preparations, but had to finish them up and come. And and John is here. Hey, John.
Hey, Justin, they will
So
never let you go.
yeah, well, like I said, I don't know what I'll do when I am actually gone, but we have this night, so we have to talk about what happened in Nusseirat, another massacre, one of the biggest so far. And apparently it's a giant triumph. It's been celebrated by Tony Blinken as a triumph. It's being celebrated in Israeli media as a great victory. They killed 210 Palestinians, seven bombings right on this camp. And so, I mean, I think first of all, we might as well just start with just reconstructing the operation as far as we know. So they were in civilian trucks coming from the pier. The first thing I saw was a description by someone who survived, and they said there was a truck. I guess there was somebody who filmed the trucks going by, so that we saw, and then we saw someone say there was a truck that was cooking pots and other cooking equipment, and then they came out and they started shooting. So they started shooting. There's another testimony I saw of people in a house, and there I saw a photo from inside the house. They climbed up a ladder. The lady of the house was there in the window. They shot her right away, and then they went through the house, just killing everybody in sight, all the children, the parents, everybody. And there's a description in the Israeli media where they said how the thing went down. They said the captives were in civilian houses guarded by one guard each. All of the guards the Israelis killed, the Israelis and Americans, because the Americans owned up to being part of the operation.
I
And
think
then
from the intelligence, they owned up to the intelligence.
okay, their anti something hostage, their hostage unit or something they said was present since October 7th.
The Americans?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Americans have had Delta Force hostage rescue people apparently in Israel since October 7th. We saw them early in the war. Remember when they went and they were glad handing and
Hmm.
with Biden or with Blinken, and they didn't blur the faces of the guys. So that was
Hmm.
how we found out that they were there. But I don't think from what we see, we don't see American participation in this raid beyond intelligence, which it does sound like the intelligence came from the Americans. The Americans have stronger signals intelligence over flight. But it looks like an Israeli raid. All four of the people, the captives, were Israelis, so there wasn't any American connection. I think that the pier connection is that the pier got reinstalled today
Hmm.
in the morning and carried six trucks throughout the day. And then I think that's being mixed up with the fact that the helicopters took off from beside the pier, which they absolutely did. The pier is well within where the helicopter took off with the captives in it after. Um, but I think that actually that just makes sense. That's what the whole point of the Netzarim corridor is. It's a safe area where they can land helicopters. It's got a buffer zone on both sides that has been created that's more than 600 meters on either side of it. So landing their helicopter at the waterfront, I think makes sense from the way the Netzarim corridor works. I don't think there's a peer connection. There's no people I think put made the leap between the two. But there's no the truck that the Israelis popped out of was like a cube van type truck. It wasn't a like an aid truck that came rolling off the port for operational reasons, that wouldn't make any sense to do for the Israelis. The Israelis already have access to Nusseirat refugee camp because of their operations in the Netzarim corridor. So they're able to, and that's the whole purpose of the corridor, to allow them to get into the central Gaza Strip, like the middle of the Gaza Strip, east-west, also north-south, but the east-west corridor allows them to jump off and carry out operations like this, and that's the reason why they want that. But we found that there's no Americans involved in this. There's still at least five American passport holders still in captivity, and they none of them were involved in this. The four people that we know, they were taken from Nova, from the music festival, from the rave. Three of them were soldiers, and one of them was the hired guard at the rave. So this is again something that we're going to see when the rest of the captives get out, is that there's been deliberate obfuscation about who's civilians and who's not in these that are being held. So these are very obviously prisoners of war. These are soldiers. As soon as the woman that was released today, they released all her photos of her in her military uniform and all the stuff that we hadn't seen for the last 8 months. Um, so yeah, and then the Americans said that they backed the plan. They were, there's no red line on killing, you know, whatever it was, 200 people. I don't even think we know the exact number right now. They overwhelmed the two hospitals. They massacred people in the market. Like you said, they shot and killed people all the way up the stairs in a civilian home. The captives were being held in a civilian home. They came out looking in
Well,
pretty good
let's
shape.
let's so they got them, and then I guess they were rolling out, at which point they got into a firefight with resistance. And according to the same Israeli report, they said it became necessary to call in these airstrikes to try to extract our team. In that firefight, they lost at least one officer from their Yamam unit, I
Yeah, I
believe.
think was he in the I think he was killed in by the guards. I think he was
Oh,
killed in the breaching operation to
on the
get the
way in.
guards. Yeah, so he was a senior officer of the Yamam unit, which is a they're they're highly trained elite, they call them, um, border police force that do these kind of operations. And apparently, they had been training for this operation for weeks. They had built a mock up of the building. And so they had been practicing over and over again the storming of this building. And then when they do carry it out, the purpose of practicing is so that you don't kill every single civilian you encounter in the course of the mission. Normally, that would be like for a normal army.
Yeah.
That's the goal. I mean, when they train for these operations, they train in a box that uh, things pop up, right? And you have to make a decision about who to shoot. And like an old lady will pop up, and if you shoot the old lady in your training, like all the lights come on, everything. Like they're the point is to not do that. And then the IDF, they brag about training for this operation for 3 weeks, waiting for the green light and go in and just murk everybody that anyone in sight,
Yeah,
unarmed people.
and then on their way, so as to finalize their extraction is when they drop these seven bombs.
Yeah, it sounds like they got the resistance hemmed in the second vehicle, it sounds like, and they believed that they were going to get stuck. This is their story,
This is their story.
and got into a firefight. But there's killing all around the operation as well. They're
Right.
bombing,
Shelling,
yeah,
drone attacks.
yeah,
Yeah, it's not
helicopters,
just those seven
yeah,
bombs. And like you said, the hostages are intact. No 8 months of being raped, no premature pregnancy, no. And there have been photos circulating comparing the condition of Palestinians when they leave Israeli torture prisons with these hostages and
As there
how
should
they
be,
look.
as there
Yeah.
should be. And to think about what these guys come out of captivity for 8 months. Apparently, they're watching TV all the time. Like they seem like they were treated very well.
And there would have been plenty of opportunity to kill them during the operation by their guards, which
Yeah,
the guards didn't do. So it's just like the the mentality of the people holding Israeli prisoners is so different from the Israeli mentality that
yeah.
it's
I mean,
not
it
even
sounds like they were in just like she described. The woman described living in like just one of the richest houses in Gaza and being taken well care. I mean, they look like they all gained weight.
yeah.
It's almost absurd to think about. And then they're going to come out and they're going to be told that all their family members told them that they were sexually assaulted every day and they just like the things these captives are going to learn about their families, their friends, the state they live in, the army that defends them. It's going to be remarkable,
I
I think.
suppose maybe they're
Maybe,
maybe you
maybe,
overestimate
maybe I
how different
overestimate.
they are from their society. So they their existence disproves various things, but you know the Israelis will just move on to the next lie. I guess the Americans, I think the Americans probably were more involved. The fact that they um when they made a specific statement saying it wasn't our peer, which is an interesting thing to do, and not believing anything until it's officially denied is generally a good practice.
I noticed that when I read it too. But
Yeah,
yeah, it just doesn't make I just it doesn't make any operational sense. And the videos of that were recorded by the soldiers that are on the shoreline, they seem to be recording it as like I
there.
mean, they obviously make idiotic recordings all the time, but they're making the recording of the helicopter, and you can see the boat on the pier. So there's no reason to bring it in from the pier to carry out an operation like that. For one thing, that would be something that everyone would see, and you would try to get your force in without that kind of, like some of those aid trucks are followed by hundreds of people in some cases. So, but yes, they definitely used civilian vehicles as they do. This is their main way of raiding in the West Bank. I think there's a lot of things about this raid that look like what a West Bank raid looks like. Um,
Yeah,
and yeah, and of course, we only have the Israeli story, which they're trying to spin it as like their Entebbe moment, like to try to like this is their moment to rescue Netanyahu's career and to postpone the collapse of the government that looked like it was on deck. And
by
yeah, and
committing the biggest massacre in
yeah, I mean,
since the last giant tent massacre.
yeah, and the Israelis just don't even care about that part. It barely registers in the story.
So it's a great victory for Israel. You know, as Ali Mortada said, you rescued four in 8 months, so
Yeah,
it'll take you 20 more years to get the rest at this pace.
this does appear to be the first legitimate rescue of their captives. All the other ones have huge asterisks on them. Um, or the ones in Jabalia
Like
just recently where they were all dead.
the Super Bowl one.
And the Super Bowl one was like a low hanging fruit, which was someone being two people being held by a family, and the family tried to in negotiations, like international negotiations, making phone calls all over the world from their house in Gaza to try to get a ransom for
To
for
get
their
out.
people. So that's a super easy operation that nobody had to die in that operation. They killed something, and they killed something like 75 to do that.
Hmm.
Because they do this thing where they believe they have to do this diversionary operation. And that
Yes.
they also linked that to the
Very clever.
Darabala.
Very,
Yeah.
very clever diversionary operation.
Yeah. Where you
Um,
just massacre people 2 blocks away so that the attention goes there. But they're saying that the mechanized invasion of Darabala um, was part, which we saw videos from just the other day come out. For that operation, the IDF is saying that that operation was a is apparently a limited operation that was designed to pull Qassam fighters
sure.
from Nusseirat down to
I mean,
Darabala.
they massacre so many people with no reason and
Yeah.
no explanation that it's almost like
Yeah, there was so many
I don't even
kids.
know what they believe. I don't know whether they believe what they're saying. I don't think they
11
do.
a.m. 11 a.m. till 1:30 p.m. The captives are home in Israel at 1:30 p.m. 11 a.m. raid where you attack a market. It's just full of children. The streets are full of children playing. The casualties are wildly disproportionately children. It's just a horror show for people that could have been. I mean, I don't know now that we know that they're soldiers, but these are the people that Hamas, that Qassam said on the first day could go home
Hmm.
the next day, October 8th, right? Like they could have been home in their beds October 9th with a nominal, they didn't even demand a prisoner exchange if we can remember back all that long ago.
Yeah,
Qassam was willing to give the civilians up without an exchange. The exchange only comes as Israel refuses to negotiate. And then after the November exchange, which was civilians that could have been released on the 8th or the 9th, that's when Qassam said, okay, now if you're not going to negotiate in good faith and we're going to keep these people here, the
yeah,
price isn't going to be zero
yeah,
when we resume. And so that's when these people started to become part of the prisoner exchange. So it's
right.
just, I mean, it's just the horror of this. And
Speaking of the statements about the price, I mean, we have statements from the resistance, which are basically like, this doesn't change anything. The they've said this before. However many captives you kill, um, we're still going to exchange them for all of our prisoners, even if it's one. It's going to be one for 10,000. If we have 100, it's going to be 1,000 each, whatever, or 100 each, I guess. So, and Abu Obeida, the spokesman for the Qassam brigades, he made a short statement. I think it was just a written report. I didn't see any audio or anything, but he basically said that they killed some of their hostages in the operation as well. So he said, you know, they rescued some, you know, but they also killed some of their,
yeah, it would be interesting to follow that and see if that's the case.
yeah. Um, and then he also pointed out the fact that they can take more, which is something that I've said, you know, and that they did in Jabalia. He said we also have, we haven't lost the ability to take more hostages either. So, you know, there are tactical ups and downs. Um, this is, you know, this I think it is a tactical, you know, by their criteria of some kind of tactical victory for the Israelis.
Yeah, certainly.
Um,
It's the first time, it's the first legitimate recovery of any of their captives that um, but remember the previous ones with they could have had their three in Shujaiya who came
mhm.
out with their shirts off and their hands above their head
And they
with
killed them themselves.
and they hunted them and killed them, chased them down and killed them while they were begging not to be shot in Hebrew with SOS written in Hebrew on the walls. So they've had some pretty spectacular failures.
Yeah.
multiple, at least, I believe there's at least two raids where they attempted to get prisoners, where the prisoners were killed in the raids. They got the two low hanging fruit from the civilians at the Super Bowl event. And other
Yeah.
than that, you don't see anything. And even just modest military gains by the Israelis, even just modest intelligence. If those people were living for months in the same building
Hmm.
in Nusseirat and the Israelis have no idea. And this is an example where they claim to have known for several weeks, if not months. But if they were having any kind of military like success, we would see these happen.
Yeah.
They raid entire cities with multiple divisions and come out with zero intelligence.
Well, the other thing that the Hamas uh, statements have contained, including Abu Ubaida's statement, is that they're going to change how they hold these captives now. And
Yeah, they're not going to live in the richest family home
yeah,
and be fed in the way, and they're going to end up in the tunnels.
yeah.
Uh,
So you have a situation where this is going to be this is what this is what a big victory looks like for Israel. Mass murder directly implicating the Americans in their crimes, bringing the stupid American peer under fire now. Like
yeah,
they're going to be competing for the Iraqis and the Yemenis are going to be competing for who gets to hit that pier
yeah.
first. Um, and you got four um, festival attendees back, not military, not military prisoners from the bases
That's right.
that are probably already in the tunnels. And so now Hamas is going to change the way they hold the captives. You've just massacred hundreds of people, and you've brought the Americans into the spotlight for their participation in the genocide. So,
Yeah, congratulations, Israel.
congratulations. Yeah, congratulations. That that's the best they can do, and they've done it.
And they want to make it, they can already tell in their language. They want it to be historic. They want this
Yeah,
to be a historic raid.
and they've actually said things like this is not going to be easy to repeat. They've said one commander said this is a tactical victory, but it doesn't change our strategic situation. The strategic situation, I mean, I don't know if I think I sent it to you yesterday, John, that Hezbollah engaged Israeli fighter jets with some kind of anti-aircraft. So that's a interesting strategic situation.
Yeah.
So that's new. Is Yemen and Iraq did a joint drone operation. Um, so
Answer a log fired on a ship in the Gulf of Aden today, it seems like.
yeah, and a couple of other ships I think the day before. So yeah, congratulations. This was their day. The
Yeah, and it
Nusseirat
created
massacre.
absolute panic in Gaza, right? Because
Yeah,
people have left the south, more than a million, left Rafah and went to the middle camps.
yeah.
And that is the area that they were effectively told to go to. And now the operation in Rafah is simply on the Philadelphia corridor and a little bit up the western coast, into Mawasi. And all the people in the middle camps look that just got there are now believing that they're in the middle of a military operation to clear
I mean, this
Darabala.
saying clear is not even. I mean, they do is raid. It's just a question of how long the raid is and how long till the next one.
and how far the people have to move,
Yeah.
right? People were really panicked today, and it's possible that this was a contained event, and the Israelis are saying that last week's invasion of the middle camps was the diversion, so it's possible that they rein
I
that
mean,
back in.
I
But invading the middle camps when everyone is in the middle camps is a
that's
bigger disaster than raiding Rafah when everyone was in Rafah. There's
right.
less space, there's
Yeah.
less infrastructure. Like people were in camps that were being roughly organized in Rafah, but once that broke apart,
Yeah.
that it hasn't they didn't go to a prearranged camp from their camps in Rafah. People went to just find wherever piece of land they could. And it doesn't have a soup kitchen, and it doesn't have washroom facilities set up, and it doesn't have the things, the medical tents, in the same way that Rafah did. So, whatever people's fear of the invasion of Rafah, legitimate fears, those have all been transferred to the middle camps now, and it's even more of a disaster if that's the case. So, seeing that the Darabala raid may have been just part of this single event, I think is like maybe a ray of, I don't even know how you
No,
say
I
it, but
wouldn't. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. I think you have to ignore what they're saying, and you have to look at what they're doing. And what they're doing is they're trying to touch, all it looks like to me is that they're trying to touch every inch
yeah,
and be able to do that forever. And like,
yeah,
how does that, so how long, any, if you're on any part of Gaza, it's gonna be a matter of time before they come back. And yeah, and the only way they're gonna be stopped is if they feel a higher, if the resistance gets to a level that they can't tolerate anymore. And I mean, I do believe that point is closer than it's ever been. It's just their goal is so starkly to just follow the mass of people that they're displacing
yeah,
around
yeah,
and commit these atrocities.
yeah. It's horrifying.
It's not a yeah, it's not a good day to be reporting. It's not good news today. But but I think this is gonna be their best day. Like they're gonna sober up and they're gonna realize they're not in any better of a situation than they've been. And this whole time, this whole day, they've been under fire uh, throughout Gaza. There's fighting in the West Bank as expected.
Yeah.
Hezbollah's been hitting them,
Yeah,
hitting
there was
Iron Dome
seven
batteries.
seven sites of armed struggle, armed confrontation with the IDF in the West Bank.
Yeah,
Hezbollah over the last few weeks has really dialed things up,
yeah,
between the fires that they started and the attacks on the Ramia site right after Netanyahu visited and Gallant visited. Just very strong messaging from
yeah,
Hezbollah.
yeah. And I, in some ways, and I don't know who said it, maybe it was Amal Saad or maybe it was a message from Hezbollah themselves, but like there's so much talk of how the Israelis are going to go and invade Lebanon, but like the way that they're going to invade Lebanon is they're going to step up their airstrikes first and they're going to hit, they're going to try to soften them up. And they've just had such strong replies from Hezbollah with their, from their air raids, including air defense, that it's going to be it's going to be very costly for them to escalate. But
Yeah,
the way they've been talking about there's a point that they've been making to their own media that I think is worth answering, which is they say like the north of Israel has been abandoned. um like neglected by the Israeli state. That's not what's happening. They're not neglected. They're the frontier settlers are the most privileged settlers. They're the most subsidized. They're the most privileged. They're not neglected. They're just they're just facing a foe that has the resources to fight them back, which they've never had before.
Yeah. And it gets starker every day, and they're using a fraction of their capacity.
Yeah.
And then yeah, Israel just seems they just seem like they can't make any decisions, but the
Yeah.
idea that they're sort of slow walking this into an invasion of Lebanon in the, end of the summer or something
Yeah.
like that. It's just
It's a bad plan.
with who with
With
what
what forces,
army?
Habibi? Yeah, as Nasrallah said. But they're gonna do it. And the thing is, yeah, it's like I keep thinking about how Nasrallah said, "We will not let Gaza fall," right? And it's like the the resistance is still very strong in Gaza, but like if if the humanitarian catastrophe, expands and starvation expands, like there's more than one way for Gaza to fall, right? So I can imagine a decision to step up for many reasons. Like it could be a stepping up because of opportunity, because the accumulation of destruction of sensory equipment and Iron Dome radars and Iron Dome batteries just gives them more opportunities to hit northern Israel. But it could also be like a sense of urgency because of the situation continuing to get worse. There's probably some threshold that the resistance joint operations room has, you know,
We haven't seen that. Like the Darabala invasion, that's the first time that they've gone in that way. And we're seeing brand new Yassines.
yeah,
We're seeing them using tunnels. We
exactly.
saw them hit 7 tanks in a 36-hour window,
Yeah,
popping up out of tunnels, heading down in tunnels, fighting in the olive groves.
absolutely.
Just nothing shows them the
Yeah.
resistance
And
to be degraded in any way. The Beit Hanun operation that
mhm,
Qassam released footage to Al Jazeera to extended footage of the Beit Hanun ambush from a couple weeks back. That's just
mhm,
remarkable footage. Beit Hanun has been completely destroyed. They
yeah,
showed aerial footage, like drone footage of Beit Hanun, and it's like it's unspeakable. It's shocking the destruction. But
yeah,
they go back the first minute they go back, bam, they're hit as soon as they're there. We saw Sarai al-Quds today with eyes on the Philadelphia corridor.
yeah.
Israel's got a a supply line through Rafah that runs from Kerem Shalom all the way to the coast, and now it appears by satellite imagery that they at least pushed a little bit up the coast. How does that supply line hold in any kind of a war of attrition that
That
with
is what's happening. Yeah.
it's not clear how that works. So, I mean, Soraya Kuds showed us it was just a mortar attack, but they showed us cameras, like their surveillance all along the Philadelphia corridor. The Israelis are just sitting ducks in that. Uh, I
Yeah.
don't see that's one that I don't see the long-term strategy. I get that they want to create these fingers, they want to create these corridors that they can raid.
They can want all kinds of things, but
How they're going to hold that is not clear to me.
I think they're gonna have a pretty bad week ahead in that corridor. Well, that's it for me. I'm really gone this time, you guys. I can't make any more of these for weeks. But I don't know. I'll try to put something on Instagram or look for me on Instagram. Maybe like I said, I'll try to make like a Greg Stoker style. I'll be walking. I'll have my
Walking
phone in front
through
of me. Yeah. Just be walking
through the trees.
through the jungle. Yeah. All right. Thanks, John.
All right, safe trip.
Catch John on the live stream. I'm sure you guys will have a lot to talk about on Wednesday.
Big show Wednesday.
All right.